Hello, welcome to my programming stream. I'm Greg, by the way. Uh, Thanks for anyone who's joining us. Today we're going to make some draggable tabs in Elm. I've not done this too much before, so it's going to be pretty fresh, but I'm excited to see how it performs for something that I think is a pretty useful feature. Um, Before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about, in case you're unfamiliar with even what Elm is. It's a language built for making UIs nice to maintain and build. It's a functional programming language, so if you're new to the stream or to Elm in general, it's going to have some quirks, as you would put it, if you were building it in another type of language like JavaScript or Python or something like that. I think you build Python for web apps, but there's going to be a different approach of how to solve the problems that you may be used to solving with loops or variables and whatever else. So hopefully you get to learn something pretty cool, and I hopefully have some people to give me some feedback, and let's see if we can make something cool. So the other thing I wanted to point out and talk about just for a little before we start was that tech still needs diversity, and we need it pretty bad. I work in San Francisco, and it's still a majority white male dominated profession, and that's definitely a problem since it's not representative of our population, and there's systematic discrimination and bias towards hiring people who are not in that clique of being a typical hoodie-wearing white techie. So the link that I posted first is a link to a tech talk that I thought was really good about why this harms us as an industry, not only ethically but also technically. And then I just posted some names of organizations that are really good to volunteer at. Hackbright in San Francisco it's a women's workshop focused on like 12 weeks of getting bootstrapped to become an engineer. I volunteer there, and it's been a very rewarding experience. There's a lot of really smart women that are just doing an incredible job learning how to put things together, as we do as engineers, coming from all kinds of backgrounds. And Code 2040, I've yet to be involved with, but want to start reaching out to that one. That group focuses on Black and Latino people who want to code and get in the industry as well, since that is also an underrepresented group. I stress to anyone who's watching the stream too, or is interested in technical work, to try to find communities that are different than you back in your own community, or start some of these communities. They don't have to be paid for things or official curriculums. It can just really be a kind of meetup focused on trying to get people with different backgrounds around you. For instance, we just ran a successful Elm Bridge in San Francisco a few weeks ago. It was really great to focus on women in that one in particular, and trying to get people without the typical background into Elm, and trying to change that ratio even among the Elm community. So I highly encourage you. I think Luke is in the channel, so hey Luke, and he's actually interested in getting something like Elm Bridge into Chicago, and I'd love to see that effort. If there's anything we can do, there's a lot of materials online for Bridge materials. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel. I'd say we start getting coding, and I'm not sure what everyone's proficiency is with Elm, so I'll try to explain as much as possible without taking too long. So all I have so far is a pretty simple boilerplate project. So we're calling it Elm draggable tabs. All I did was run Elm package install. Let's see if we can make this window a little bit bigger, by the way. Yeah. Okay, so all I did was run Elm package install, and then what that does is it prompts you for hey Luke. All that does is it prompts you for what packages you need to start a typical Elm application. I think it installs HTML by default. So in our Elm program, we are just importing HTML And then our main, this is the function that Elm looks for to start running its program, and we're just giving it a text node called hello. So here we go, we've got some kind of app. But we want to make this thing interactable. So let's start by adding a program. So right now in html.app, there's a thing called the program. This as, by the way, is saying let's alias this right here and call it HTML. So let's, instead of doing html.text, which is just going to be a text node, no responsiveness at all, we'll call program. And so program takes a lot of arguments. It kind of, my plugins and Atom, this text editor, do some auto-completion. But generally it takes an init, like the initial model to start off. So right now let's just start with a model of like, let's just start with number 0. We'll have some update. So this update takes a message and a model and returns a new model. And in this case, since it's a program, it also returns any, in a tuple, it takes the model and then it returns any commands that we want to run. So right now we're just going to do command.none. This is same init. Is there anything we want to run a side effect when we start the program? And then finally, our view code, we have some model. By the way, what I'm doing here with the backslash and this arrow these are unnamed functions. We're going to replace these with actual functions. I just want to get us back to something on the screen. So hello world, and then with all this, HTML that text. So and then we're missing. This is telling us that we're missing subscriptions, which are a feature that we're going to be using a lot today. So I'll explain those later. In this case, this gets a model as well, our model, and we'll just return no subscriptions for right now. Okay, compiles. Now we see hello world, so that's good. Now we're actually going to want to make some kind of thing. So let's make a new module. I like to keep my main program outside of the actual thing that I'm writing. So let's just talk about draggable tabs.elm. So we'll make a module, tabs, exposing. Also, I've had a lot of trouble uploading while streaming. So if anyone has an issue with a really long delay, if you could let me know in the chat, I'll see if I can do something about it. In the worst case, this will all be uploaded to YouTube if it's not streamable. I'm working on the internet thing. So draggable tabs, then we're going to start writing these functions that we just wrote unnamed ones. So let's just copy everything that we had before. So we'll have an init, and we'll import draggable tabs exposing. These mean we're exposing functions that are in that module to the top level of this file. So we're going to expose init from that module. We're going to expose update when we write it, view, and subscriptions. So then this one as well, we're just going to take this result and write. You'll notice that when we write functions now, we're using equals instead of the backslash and the arrow, and that's how you, because these functions have a name. See, update. Then for the view, let's just do that text node of hello world. And then any subscriptions, I like to put the subscriptions at the top. And right now we'll just do sub.none. And we'll need to import HTML. And it's a little annoying to write HTML dot something every time. So I'm going to expose everything in the HTML module to the top level. And I won't be smart enough that if we used something else named the same thing, like we defined, like right now this will compile, but if we like defined the text here and it took, I believe this is the exact same type signature. I didn't mean to write hello. yeah, so now it'll say, it'll try to take the one that's right here. So the thing about exposing everything is that it's not as explicit, and I'm not a huge fan of it when you start making a library, but for right now, for prototyping, it's pretty nice. So we'll hook up the update to this in our view. So all this function is doing, by the way, if you're unfamiliar with Elm's program, is that it takes a record, meaning a bunch of named name value pairs with different values, and it takes 4 different names. So we have an init to start the program, an update function to view it, to update it, and then a view function to view the program, and then subscriptions go into that as well. And then we just fill out each of these functions and pass them into the record. So now we have an amazing interactive program that doesn't do anything interactive yet. So let's start with that. We'll define our model here. So type alias means we're going to call something, some shape of record, our model. And in this case, we'll start with just our list of tabs. So let's have that be a list of strings for right now. And we'll start that model with tabs equals about tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. And then let's add annotations to the top of our functions so that we can see. Now it's saying, oh yeah, that's the wrong annotation because it's actually a tuple we're returning. And if you're wondering what message is going to be all the messages that can come into our program. So for right now, we'll just say like set the active tab. We'll work on that, and it'll pass some string. So we can include this here. That's what message is, model, and same as we were talking about earlier. HTML. So, all right. So basically, our view responds when we have our changes in our model. We can reflect them. So let's say we just want to look at all these tabs real quick. Let's just do a div, and we will. This is the any attributes to the div, and then this is a list of children. So let's do list.map, meaning transform everything in this list into something else from A to B, type A to type B. So we will take our tabs and view and send. We'll make a function called view tab for each one. So view tab. This one's just going to take. Our tabs are just strings, so we'll take a string and we'll return some HTML message. So the tab itself is a string right now, and then we'll just return text the tab. So then here's our tabs on the screen. Now, in subscriptions, in case we want these warnings to go away, that just takes a model and returns some subscription that also returns message. So what's nice about an Elm program is that every program looks the same in general. There's a model that when it gets changed, the application state is changed. All of the state is in the model. The update takes some data describing what needs to change and the model and returns a new model with any messages, anything we want to go run, and that will come back as messages. So you'll see everything's parameterized with message. It means that the only way to update your application is through this message. And so then you have a view as well, and anything that you interact with on the view can also produce a message. That's why HTML message. All right. So now let's add some CSS to make this thing look even close to reasonable. CSS. So we'll just say what tab is, let's say something ugly, but it'll be easy to identify. 1 pixel solid gray, I guess. And then we'll also say, we're going to start with some assumptions about these tabs, since we're going to be calculating when we drag exactly where to place them and when to show previews and whatever else. We're going to make some assumptions about the tabs. We're going to say that they are a fixed width and a fixed height for now. And we're also going to assume that they start at the 0 pixel mark on the screen, since we're going to be tracking the global mouse position. Depending on how far we get, we can add in more complexity for making sure that this thing can get used across different parts of the page. So right now let's start with 100 pixels for a tab width and a height of 50, make them rectangular. And now I didn't do any setup for this app. Oop, better close that. So what I'm using right now is a tool called Elm Live. It's really nice because it gives you a hot reload environment, so when I change these CSS things, I don't have to refresh the page. It all just generates back up there. That's using Webpack under the hood. But it's just a command line tool you can install by running npm install -g Elm Live. So make sure you're in a newer version of Node though. And then you'll just run Elm Live with the arguments like to your main file. And then it's actually just an alias to Elm make, so it should work pretty much the same. And then what we're trying to output now is not an HTML file, but actually some kind of like elm.js file. And we're going to make a new index.html. So in this one, let's write the scaffolding for an Elm app. Probably should have done this before. In fact, I think if we go to Elm Live, they have an example. If you're wondering why that was a cute cat, there's a really awesome extension called Tabby Cats that I've been pretty crazy about. It's in the Chrome Web Store, so I'd recommend checking it out. All right, so Elm Live, it says the simplest example is right here. So yeah, let's start with this instead of typing this all out. And now, okay, elm.js is what our output will be, and then let's throw in some main.css. Cool. And if we go back to this, we should have output elm.js, and then open just tells the browser to open on that. Okay, cool. So it looks like, yeah, we're loading in main.css. So let's actually add that as a class to our tab. So we'll just call it tab, and it's going to give me an error once I save saying that class is not defined, and give me some suggestions. I'm going to import class from html.attributes, exposing class. Okay. And then we have some styles. Cool. So now we're also going to want to write some other classes. We're going to want to write some kind of row, or just tab list. We'll assume that they're horizontal for now. So if we go over here, tab list, and we'll say display flex. I think that should be enough for us to get started. Yeah. Cool. So now we're also going to want to, do we need anything else for styles? I don't believe so. All right, so let's start figuring out, we have something on the screen, so it's probably a good commit point. So we'll initialize the Git project. We'll, is there anything up? We gotta ignore some packages. So let's get reset. Cool. And let's add a good ignore. The only things we really need to ignore in Elm is Elm stuff. That's a bunch of the build artifacts. And then we also don't care about that elm.js file. We also don't care, I think that's all the stuff we don't care about. Let's try that again. Yeah, that looks good. All right, now we have something to start with. I haven't determined what I'm pushing up to yet. After the stream, I'll post a link to the repo, and then people can check it out and build on it, or just read the code again and visit it. So, undraggable tabs. Now let's start doing something cool with selection. We have this setActive message that we're never using. So let's have a selected tab. We'll just identify that by which tab it is, the string. We'll assume that each string is their ID, but I think that, I think it might make sense to do it by index, but we'll start with just the actual identifier, the string. So basically when we update, now we want to switch on every type of message that there is. So if the message is of the type setActive, we're going to get a tab ID, which is that string, as a parameter. And then we're going to do something where we update the model. So the way to update a record is to take the record's name, put curly braces around it, add a pipe, and this is read as where. So we're going to update the model where some field on the model, in this case selected, equals the tab ID that we passed to it. We also have definitely broken a init since we didn't add another field for selected. So let's start with tab 1 is selected. Then that should all compile, it looks okay. So now we want to have some notion of a selected tab. So let's pass in our model here as well. So if we have our model and view tab, let's assume, then what we want to do is we want to add a class like isSelected. So there's also a nice helper function in HTML attributes called class list, where you can pass a list of classes and whether or not they're turned on right now. So tab, we always want that to be true. But if we want tab selected, we want that to be a variable. So that's going to be if model.selected is equal to that tab that we passed in. And then we'll let format take care of the rest. Oh, that should be over here. There we go. And yeah, so it's saying, did you want one of the following? Yes, I did. Thank you so much. Class list. And now we've got, it's saying, yeah, you're not passing me enough information. This thing also needs a model. So what's nice in Elm is we can say, oh, well, pass in the tab, for each item in the list, but then we also want to pass in another argument, and that starts with the first. The last thing is always the data structure, and that's what gets passed in last here. So we could pass in arbitrary arguments like this. So in this case, we're doing view tab, and we're passing in the model. Cool. And so right now, we don't have tab selected defined, so let's do that. Tab selected, and we'll just background color, we'll do like cyan, and we'll do opacity like, I don't know, something so it's not so crazy. Maybe 3. maybe just not opacity. Let's just leave it as cyan. Okay, so now we can see that tab 1 is selected, but we probably want to make it so that other tabs can get selected. So what we'll do is we'll add an event onto this div for when we click it to set that tab active. So on click, if you're wondering where this should be coming from, it's from the HTML package again, but this time from events. So we'll be exposing on click. So on click, we're going to set active, and right now that'll just send us the message. We need an argument to that message, so we're also going to send it the tab that we're on. So now you can see we have tabs being selected. That was pretty easy, and it seems like a good point to commit. So we have selectable tabs. Cool. Now what we want to do is have the ability for there to be some kind of dragging message. So dragging should be started by the mouse being pressed down. So we're going to have some notion in our model of what the drag state is for that tab. So let's just call it, let's define it. I like to work with the model first. We're going to call it like either tab drag state, tab drag. Not really sure what the best name is here, but we'll just call it tab drag. And we'll define what that is right here. I believe Evan said in some pairing video that he'd like to have all the definitions up until the one that uses all of them defined first, so that you know by the time you get to here you can be like, wait, what's tab drag? Oh, I already know. I've already read about it. So tab drag, we've got the start position, the start mouse position, the X and Y of where we started the drag. So that'll be mouse.position. And if you're wondering where mouse is coming from, I can import that as well. Except mouse is not something that's imported by default. So we're going to have to go back to our terminal and run elm package install elmlang mouse. Asks me very nicely if I want these in my package, and it downloads them. So now we have mouse. Mouse.position is one of the type aliases in it. So that's the start position for the mouse. Then we want to know the current position of the mouse at all times. And we're probably also going to want to know which, to make this specific to a tab, we want to know which tab ID it was. So I'm thinking that it might be easier, since it's a list, just to deal with the index of the tab. So we'll start with just the tab index, and we'll have that be an integer. So that's tab drag, and we've put it onto our model here, but now we need to actually create one. So the thing is, there's not always going to be a tab that's being dragged, and there's only ever going to be one at one time. So it's not actually just tab drag. It's not like the drag is always happening. Otherwise, we need some field on here like is dragging, and that's silly. So in Elm, in JavaScript, you would just put null here when there's no tab being dragged. In Elm, there is no concept of null, nil, whatever. We use the concept of maybe. So maybe there's a tab drag, and I'll show you what that means as we go through. So right now, there is no tab drag. There's nothing. And we're going to set that to some kind of drag state in a bit. So let's just make sure that that compiles. Looks good. And now we're going to start adding like a message for the tab to start dragging. So tab drag start, and we're going to pass it some XY to start with. So that XY is really a mouse position. And then the other thing we're going to need to know to fill that thing out was the index of the tab. So that's an int. So, and I think we're actually going to have it be the int first, and then the mouse position, since every one of them needs the XY as well. So tab drag start, we have some tab index, and then we have our XY. And then we've got our model where so we need to create the drag straight here. So one way of doing this, drag equals, we could create another record inside here, but also if you can create any record, like this right here, can be created as, this is our model, right? So it goes in order of the appearance of these keys. So for the first one is tabs, the second one's selected, the third one's tab drag, so we could have gone model, this, and then tab 1, and then nothing. This is equivalent to this. Well, I just removed this, but yeah, these are equivalent. So it's just a convenient shortcut when something doesn't have that many key value pairs. So I'm going to use that right here for now. So we do tab drag. The first thing is the start, so we'll say XY. The next thing is the current, XY again, and the last thing is the tab ID, or the tab index, sorry. So there we go. That's a shorthand way of doing it. And then we need to return no commands to run right now. And in fact, as we're writing this, it's going to get annoying to keep doing this tuple that's always returning none. And so there's still a problem though. Oh, that's because this is a maybe. So we need to say just take this right here, and then this could be accomplished by parentheses. Like we're going to say just this thing. Or Elm has a pipe operator, so it's nice to take the output of this function and pipe it to just. So now we should be fine. Yeah. Cool. So it's going to get annoying to write this tuple over and over again. I think it makes the code a little less clear sometimes. So I'm going to have the notion of this update, and then I'm going to have a pure update, meaning there's no side effects. There's none of this tuple business. So now it'll just be message model returns a model. And so we can get rid of all of these. Right now we don't need any kind of commands going out. We're not doing any HTTP. We're not doing any writing to anything. And we're not asking of the DOM at any point, I don't believe. And so we're just going to say that for any update, we're just going to call pure update. We're going to pass it message and model, but then we're just going to take the output of that and have no commands. And so now here, this should just clean up that code a bit. Cool. So now that would be how we start it. Let's also talk about how we would, well, let's actually just hook that up right now. So give me a moment. Okay, so for our one of our tabs, we also want to add another event called on mouse down. So there is a shortcut for on mouse down, just like for on click, but we want to do something a little special with this, where we are taking the mouse position and throwing it into this on mouse down. So another attribute to add to it. So on mouse down, we're actually going to say JSON.map. I'll explain in a moment. Tab drag start, and we're going to pass that to tab, and we're also going to pass mouse.position. So what is this doing? Well, basically we can think of it without this parameter first, and we can say, okay, on mouse down, what do I want to, like, what kind of message do I want to send? And we're going to say, well, I want to grab the mouse position, and I want to turn the JSON response from the mouse down into a message called tab drag start. So we're grabbing this position, and we're mapping it to JSON, and then we need to also throw in an argument here for what the actual index of the tab is. Yeah, so I believe that was the first argument. Yep. So everything's in the correct order. What we need to do also is grab the index somehow. So right now we only have the tab itself. We're also going to need its index. And to get the index in here, we can just add indexed map. So this should be good now, except we need to import JSON and we need to import on for our custom event handler. So import JSON.decode as JSON. Okay, cool. So now if we fire up the console, let's log some messages. So if we throw a debug.log, and we'll say each message that comes into our app, we'll be logging it to the console. So debug log just, it's not like console log in JavaScript or print in Python. It takes this argument. The first argument is the title of the thing you want outputted and printed, and then it takes whatever data you want to print out, and it still returns the exact same thing. So message will be unaltered. It just does the side effect of printing. So now we should see tab drag start. Yep. And this is something weird with my build setup. It has nothing to do with Elm itself, but I've been getting this the last day or two with Elm Live, so I need to figure out what's wrong here. But just ignore the type error thing. It's not actually affecting anything. So we can see tab drag start, like where the X and Y started, which isn't super great. We want to get dragging as well. So let's add that now. Tab dragging. That one, we just need a mouse position. I don't believe we still need the tab, because the tab will never switch out during the dragging process. So we'll handle this here. Don't need that index, we just need XY. Model where tab drag equals, oops. So trying to think of what we need to, we just need to set the current. So I'm trying to decide if passing in the drag state makes sense from the subscription. We'll just handle it with the maybe right now. So right now we have on model.tabDrag. That's a maybe tab drag. So if we want to extract something from it, we need to, if we want to operate on it assuming that it already is something and not nothing, we can use maybe.map. So this will apply some function here to this. So let's say it was maybe a number. If it was add 1 to maybe a number, you can't do that. But with maybe.map, you can. It just goes in, tries to add 1 to whatever number is in there. If it's nothing, it returns nothing. If it is a number, then it adds 1 in it and returns that maybe number. So maybe.map here, we're going to change the drag state to, we're going to change the current value. So in tab drag, we've got mouse.position, and so we're going to change that. So we'll do set current. We'll make a function. So let's define this function here. A little helper. It'll take a tab drag for sure. Not a maybe, but it's definitely a tab drag. And we'll say tab drag where current equals the XY that we also pass in. So we'll pass it one other argument, XY. So I'll write the annotation so we get exactly what's going on here as well. And that's going to return a new tab drag. So all this maybe.map is doing is pretending like this is actually a thing and not just a maybe. Cool. And that should run. Yeah, but tab dragging never gets fired. So we need to fire that from somewhere, and the place we're going to do that is in our subscriptions. So subscriptions are basically a way of saying, hey, Elm runtime, tell me anything that's happening on the page over time, and just notify me when results happen. So in this case, we're going to want to know about mouse movements. So to grab information about mouse movements, we have two cases right now. We have our model right here, the current model of the app. So if the model dot tab drag is nothing, then we'll just return no subscriptions. We won't watch anything. But if a drag has started, then we'll get that tab drag, and we'll start making some subscriptions. So we're going to need two subscriptions. We're going to need when the mouse moves, and we're going to need when the mouse finally lets up, when the drag is stopped. So what we'll do is we'll put both of these subscriptions in a list, and then we need to grab some. We need to have each of these. These are functions right here. So if I type in mouse moves, I'm not sure why it's not. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not showing me the autocomplete yet. Maybe I need to save it first. But so mouse moves just takes, it needs a message. So we're going to call it tab dragging. And we're going to pass in just the mouse moves for right now, the XY. And then the ups one, we'll just do tab drag end, which we haven't written yet. And then this entire thing, this list of subscriptions, to make them into one subscription instead of a list, so that we can see this is just one subscription. This model returns one subscription. We can use the function sub.batch, which takes a list of these subscriptions, turns them into one. So this should be fine. And yep, tab drag end is not defined yet. We'll do it right here. And that'll be mouse.position. All right. And we'll notice also if we hit save now, it'll say, hey, you forgot to match this pattern. So that's a nice way of ensuring that we always handle every case. So tab drag end. Now what we want to do is actually just set it to nothing. It's stopped. It is stopped. We've stopped dragging. So let's see if this produces some real messages for us. Yeah, there we go. We can see a lot of things here. It dragged and ended somewhere else. Now this is annoying. You can actually drag the title itself. So an attribute we can throw on all this stuff is draggable false. I believe if you do it on the parent, yeah, so draggable is in HTML attributes. So let's expose that. Maybe now we won't be able to drag anything inside them, any of the text and whatnot. Cool. Seems good. All right, so let's actually make them behave. We know that the messages are there, which is huge, but we don't see any kind of movement of these tabs. So let's commit here. So add drag messages and mouse dependency. And let's make a new class for the tab that we're dragging. So dragging tab. There's really no convention that I'm following here very closely. So the dragging tab will probably have all of these, so we'll just use that class again. And then this one will just be, maybe it has some kind of like lower opacity, I'm not sure. Unless, yeah, wait, maybe we just want to make like the background color something else. Just something to distinguish. Let's do like magenta. Yeah, that seems really bright though. Anyways, this is just for clarity. So dragging tab, that's going to be the class. We'll write a new view function for that dragging tab. So now let's just return some HTML. div class tab and dragging tab. And then the text for that can be, yeah, let's assume we need the tab. So view dragging tab, where we want to drop that. So right now our view is just the tab list. Let's make a new view function that wraps this. We'll call this view tabs. And then put a div here for our app. And we'll say view tabs, where we pass in the model. And then our next child will be view dragging tab. Let's see if it just shows up underneath. Oh, whoops, need to pass it a tab. So let's only show this in the case of model.tabDrag of, we have a tab drag, and we'll pass in, so we only have the index right now, so let's just pass it, yeah, we have to pass it the ID, okay. So view dragging tab, we'll do list dot take. So we're going to take the first this tab drag, and so we can destructure. We can. Oh, good point on the chat. The text is still selected in process dragging. Yeah, I can add draggable false, and I believe user. Oh yeah, no, that's the thing we can add. I believe on tab list, where we can say user select none, and I don't believe that works for all browsers, but we're just using Chrome right now. So if we go back, switch back to this, when we're viewing the tab, we're going to grab everything up until the tab index. And so that tab index is actually on tab drag, but that's a lot to type. So we can take this drag object and destructure it by its named fields. So one of those is tab index. And thanks for the help, Ilya. And list.take this, and we're taking it from our model.tabs. And then we just need the head of that list. So this could be easier with arrays, but let's just keep things list for now. So let's make a little helper function for this, by the way. It's going to be called get tab by index. Where was that work happening? Right here. Okay. So we'll be passing some tabs, and then we'll do list.head of this. So what happens here is we're taking the first. No, we actually want to drop. I'm trying to remember which one to do. So it drops the first n numbers of the list. Yeah, and then we'll take the head of that. So another, yeah, we can do this. So we can drop the first ones of that, and then we'll take the first of the list. This returns a maybe. And what do we want to do in the case of a maybe? We'll go figure out up there. So we get tab by index, might be a little more explicit. And we need to pass this both tab index and all that tabs. And then this just gives us a maybe. So I'm trying to think, is there a way we can make this a little cleaner? We could also store in the drag state like the actual string, but that can get out of sync. So let's nest something for right now, and we'll break it out. So case of get tab by index of just the tab, maybe and then. Not use maybe and then yet. I will try that out once I do it the way I know how. So view dragging tab, and we'll pass it our tab, and then in the case of nothing, we'll just display an empty text node, and the same with this. For nothing, we'll display an empty text node. So yeah, so now it shows up. We should definitely clean this up and turn this into something